For more analysis, let's bring in Sourabh Gupta. He's a resident senior fellow at the Institute for China-American Studies. Sourabh, we just saw the story about Shanghai, and this city has witnessed unimaginable change in the past 4 decades. It's a world-renowned city, and we see how some of what happened there is helping Hainan. But do you think the same reforms can work in other parts of China?
Oh, yes, I think they absolutely can work in other parts of China, but it's important to have this sort of experimentation, this sort of test bed where it happens in particular parts of China, and then the lessons are drawn from those and then pluralized to larger parts of China. Yes, there are certain internal provinces in the West, maybe in the Northeast, which will have difficulty replicating the dynamism of, say, Shanghai or a future or Guangzhou or even Hainan province. But I mean, at the end of the day, it is with regard to provincial capabilities and resource endowments and comparative advantage that policy must be done. And I think Shanghai is a very useful test bed in this regard.
That brings us to China's ambitious recent goal of eradicating extreme poverty last year, but there is still quite a gap in rural and urban development. Will the next phase for those areas be harder to close?
It is going to be harder to close, but remember, even to get rid of absolute poverty was a very, very difficult challenge, and a challenge which we must actually look at not in terms just in terms of years and decades, but even in terms of centuries. Now, yes, it's important to try to keep closing these gaps, and I think, and it is true that the party is very focused in this regard, particularly with regard to its rural revitalization strategy. But at the end of the day, I mean, we are not going to have absolute equality out here. We need to have a certain equality of opportunity and let there be fluidity and movement between people, between rural and urban areas. And the more important point out here is we don't have to have this harsh divide between rural and urban. It could be rural to moving to semi-urban, small towns, and large urban municipalities. And let's have a distribution of tasks done across these localities and locations based again on their comparative advantages. And I think rural areas also have their strengths to show in this regard.
I want to widen the conversation out a second. A few days ago, we heard State Councilor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi speak about China's contributions to the United Nations over the past half-century and leading many multilateral and regional groupings as well. If you can, describe how China has evolved on the diplomatic stage over the decades.
You know, China was and is a permanent council member, and given its standing in the Security Council, it has obviously has great powers. But China has also, particularly from the reform age onwards, from post 1978, been involved in many multilateral bodies, and it's not just participating in multilateral bodies; it's about also process participation, involved in the multilateral process in the way decisions are made. And after the after the Cold War ended, we know China has become a great player even in areas where it's not just about economics, but also about security. China has become a big player in international peacekeeping. And as the dialogue moves to new types of challenges, such as climate change, we are again seeing a huge contribution by China. And I think China at this stage stands hugely poised to make a great contribution to international society. And this can range from the international and financial monetary system, from international trade and investment in the area of climate change, in the area of global health, and of course in the area of peacekeeping, where China is already, as I said, a big player.